Yes, Tony. Yes. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes, Must I Talk TV. So we're here today with Tony. Yeah, one of the veteran in Must Side from back in the days. Yeah, seen a lot, lived through a lot, been through a lot. You know. So yeah. So Tony, tell us a bit more about yourself. And where was you born?
I was born in Moss Side, Manchester, 1958.
1958. Yeah.
Yeah.
And where your parents from?
Yeah, my mother was born in Ireland, and she was born actually the same year as my dad, so she was born 1933.
You have a picture of your mom
So
there?
yeah, I've got a picture of my mum here. Yeah, I can show you.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
So that's your mum.
Yeah.
So your mum was born in Ireland.
Yeah, Ireland.
Yeah, beautiful lady. Yeah. Is she
Yeah.
still living today?
No, she passed away 2013. 2013 she passed away. Yeah.
And then your dad is
My dad was born in he was born in Kingston 13,
original,
Jamaica.
Yeah.
Same year as my mum, 1933 he was born.
Yeah.
And he come to England 1953, he stowed away and he came.
1953.
1953 he came the first time. And he was caught, so he was imprisoned in Southampton for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And they sent him back to Jamaica, and the following year he paid his fare and came to England. And he landed in Moss Side.
Wow,
He landed in Moss Side.
Yeah.
The first place he stopped was a street was called Shrewsbury Street.
Shrewsbury Street.
Yeah, that's off Raby Street.
Street. So so it's my understanding, Tony, that so there was a book. Well, there is a book. This is the actual book anyway, and it's called Because
They're Black.
They Are Black.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, today we're doing this story on Black history. Yeah, in and within around Moss Side community, and you know what I mean, what you've seen and you know all the the black organizations, over the years. Yes, you know what I mean, yeah. So so tell us about a bit more about this book, Tony, Because They Were Black.
Okay, this book because they're black.
What year this book came out?
Yeah, that book was published in 1971.
1971.
Yeah, so they prepared it maybe a year or two before. Well, I'll say probably a year before.
Yeah.
It was written by Gus John and Derek Humphreys. Yeah,
and your family actually have a story, a chapter in this very book.
That's right. Yeah, there's the story concerning my family is in chapter 3 of the book.
Of the book,
Yes.
So could you tell us a bit more about that chapter 3 story?
Yes, okay. Well, the chapter 3 story, it details the time when, my dad and my mum, we bought a house on Russell Street, which was 171 Russell Street.
Where was Russell Street?
Russell Street is in Moss Side. It's just beside Prince's Road, actually.
Okay. Close
to Prince's Road bus depot.
Okay.
And Alexandra Park.
Yes.
That's where it is.
Okay.
Alexandra Park.
Okay. So, so give us a bit.
Yeah. So what happened there is that my parents, it was actually my mum that purchased the house. And she went to to an agent and she bought the house, and that was for about £750 at the time. Yeah, she bought the house, but my dad didn't go with her to the agent. He stayed out of the way, so nor the agent or nor the people on the street got a glimpse of my dad and knew that her husband was a black man, So so as soon as she moved on the street, some of the neighbours, they used to pass remarks and say things to her like, when she actually passed them, you couldn't get anybody better to marry than a black man. That's the type of things that they would say to her. So that was in 1958. That she was able to purchase her house.
Yes.
And 4 years later, so that's 1962.
Yeah.
The first it was a racial incident, name calling.
Yeah.
And that was from some neighbours next door to us, because by that time a few of us were born and we were playing it in the street, you know. So some remarks was made and that,
and that's
I think
towards you, the kids at the time.
Yeah, towards the kids at the time. Yeah, that's right. And then what happened then was I think one of the neighbours pushed either my brother or my sister or one. So it ended up with, like, I think it was mostly verbal, whatever. You know, maybe there was some pushing or whatever going on, and it went to court. And it ended up with both sets of people, you know, that's my family and the neighbours, shaking hands.
Okay.
And that was it. That was the end of it, you know.
Okay.
With them. But I must mention that at that particular time, and that year was 1962, you know, my mom had a breakdown in that same year, you know, a nervous breakdown.
Wow.
She had in 1962. So then now fast forward to 1969. Now this is an incident with a neighbour down the street. So well, it started off, you know, one evening with me and my brother, we were throwing this frisbee in the street, you know, and a man told us to get down our own end of the street, you know. This was a full-grown man. He says, get down your own end of the street, and he pushed my brother. So my brother went home and told my dad, and my dad went up to where this man lives. And when the man see my dad, you know, my father, you know, coming towards, you know, where he lived, he ran in his house, and my dad came to the house and tried to push a door on him, and you know the pane of glass in the door broke. Okay. And the man managed to close the door, and that was it. My dad just left it and went back home with me, my brother, you know, just left it. And that was in the April of the 1969. So now we're going up to 5 months later. That was so we're going to August now. You know, what happened there was me and my brother, we got into a little fight, you know, with some friends that lived on the street, you know, some boys, you know, boys fight. So we got into this little fight, and then now we went home, and this woman came down the street. She knocked our front door and says to my mum that your boys have beat up, you know, some kid down the street and that. So we told her that it wasn't really our fault, it was a little, you know, whatever. So then now my mum, she actually went down the street to speak to this lady to tell her that it's not true, you know, what happened. And as she went down the street, 4 women, you know, white elderly women, grabbed my mum, pushed her against the, you know, against the wall, and slapped her several times. At that point, she said to my sister, go and get your dad, you know, go and get your dad. So my sister runs off down Prince's Road, you know, Blacks, and on those times, there was a bookie, a bookies that was on the corner of Green Street and Prince's Road, and that's where my dad used to go. So she found him. So I remained in the street, and you know, no time sooner, I saw my dad, you know, racing down the street. And I always remember that, you know, the lady, you know, a few of them that were stood in the street, one of the ladies said, oh, I'm not scared of him, you know, I'm not scared. And she ran in the house. So my father come running down, and he ran into her house because she had the front door open. So he runs in and he grabs her and slaps her, you know, slap her across the head. And then, you know, the police came. So as the police come now, they spoke with everybody. And they advised anybody if they want to take out any summons or they can, and they went about their business. So now so the next evening now, my dad came from work, and he said he was going to go up and speak to the you know, the same woman that came down and said that me and my brother had caused some problems. He said he was going to go and speak to you know, this woman. So when he went down now, her husband was the one that had pushed my brother in the street 4 months earlier. And on that particular day, he was on the street. You know, he was drinking, you know, beer, whatever, all day. It's like, I don't know, he seemed to sense that something was going to happen that day. So, you know, what happened then? So my dad came home from work, and he says to me, my brother, come on, you know, let's go down to the house to speak to this, you know, woman. And meanwhile, her husband was on the step. So as my dad approached, he said to me, my brother, and had his back turned, and says, is this a man that hit you, you know, that pushed you? And as soon as he says that, the man jumped on his back, while his back was turned, and they start rolling on the floor in the street, fighting. By that time, all the neighbours came out. A lot of neighbours came out, and they formed. Well, some of them formed a circle why my dad was fighting. This Irish fella, and every time my dad got on top of him, they pulled him off and let
the next guy go.
Get on top of him. All the time they were doing that. My mum went home and she got a poker. But in them days, we had pokers, for a fire. So she goes home, gets a poker, and she's hitting the man. Now, I think the reason why she was doing that was obviously because every time my dad got on top of him, they were pulling him off. Exactly. And she just thought, well, I'm just going to hit him anyway, so she's hitting him, trying to get him off my dad.
Yeah.
And we were there as children, me and my brothers and sisters were watching all of this. So, it seemed to go on for a very long time. Very long time was going on for.
Wow.
And then the neighbours at our house, crying. I even went home and got a hammer, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And went down the street, but before I could even get down the street, a neighbour took the hammer from me.
Yeah.
And even laughed and says, "Oh, don't be silly," and took the hammer from me. And I was 10 years old. I was 10 years old at the time.
So to say, was your dad the only black person on that street at that time?
At that time, it was.
So there was no one to defend him.
Nobody to defend him. And the thing is, the part of Moss Side that it was, well, you could say a white section of Moss Side, because that street, the houses was particularly probably a bit better than other houses.
The average houses.
Yeah, but it wasn't far away from where
the original,
where all the religion, exactly, where all the original Jamaicans that were living, and I could name a lot of the streets up there now. That these streets wasn't very far away, and they were living there, and so there was nobody to help him, as you said, and that's rightly so, because I remember that same thing that you just said to me, that there was nobody there to help him. I remember saying to myself, my uncle's not here, there's no other black people here to help him, and as I said, it seemed to go on for a long time. And I always remember there was a friend of mine, and he's actually mixed race because he's mum's white, and he used to do a paper round on our street. So he came down. His name was Matthew Larrier. He came down the street, and he looked at me, and he said to me when he looked at me, he said, "It's happening all over." Remember, by that time,
very sad.
The tension, can you imagine? I mean, all these people there, kids, on the street watching it, And then what happened then? Finally, the police came, and it seemed to me like an hour. It seemed a long time, and the police, came. By that time, my daddy's shoe had came off. His eye was bruised and whatever, because they were rolling on the
tarmac.
For a long time, and then when the police come now, my mum, she helped me dad back to the house, and I just remember him going in the house, clean up himself and everything, and then later on that evening, there was 3 black men that came on the street and knocked our front door and said to my father that they're from the Race Relations Board, and that there's some trouble on the street, and they want to know where the people live, because all they want to do is go down and talk with them. So my dad said to my sister, because he didn't know where these people live, so he said to her if she could come down the street with him to show him where these people live. So my sister went down the street, and she pointed to a couple of houses where where they live, and this is about 10 o'clock at night now. So it's dark. So all of a sudden, well, I couldn't see exactly how many men,
was there.
Was there. But I remember just looking down the street, because my dad told me to stay down the end of the street where I live. So I remember looking down there, and all I could hear is like glass just, breaking. And I could just see a crowd of people. And I thought to myself,
so the
wow.
tree turned into like 20.
Yeah, I could just see windows going through. And it was very quick too, because it only seemed like minutes, wouldn't put it more than 5 minutes.
So they came to defend your dad?
Yeah, they came to defend my dad, but he didn't know that, because 3 of them knocked the door. This is what, this is a story that I believe, happened. So at that point now, obviously because my dad was with, this group of men and the men that came out the alleyway and smashed the windows, he had to take up, because at that point, believe it or not, I tell you, it was only like minutes, and I've never seen or heard police sirens quickly. Police sirens, and then the police arrived very, very quickly, you know. So when the police arrived now, they came with vans, because in them days they had vans. I'm sure a lot of the older generation will know. They were called Black Mariahs.
Oh, the Mariahs, yeah.
Yeah, Black Mariahs, and they had Pandas cars, and the Black Mariahs, that came, and then they had the dogs. You know what I mean? I mean, they came with dogs, and you could hear the dogs.
So was it that being arrested that night?
No, he actually fled, because the reason why he fled, he knew that it would have come on top of him, because he had problems the evening before, and now this situation has happened. The police already knew that incidents had occurred the day before, you see.
So after that incident, when them guys came and defended Dad, how was those guys with you guys after that? Like, I'm talking those white people on the street. How was them with your dad after that? With you guys? Like, was they saying like still wanted to harass you guys after that?
That's an interesting point that you're making there, because you know what? After that, there was no more trouble with them at all. I used to go down the end of the street and play, and I used to play in the entry football, and I would see some of those, white people that live down there, and I would see their parents, some of them, and we wouldn't speak, but we would just look at each other, like when they, if they pass, and I would look at them, and they would look, and they didn't say anything, but there was no more trouble. But going back to the time now when my dad had to, he had to run away that night, because clearly he knew that trouble was coming for him, from the police. So he went into hiding, and then the next day now, that was a Saturday, and my mother got information that my dad had, wherever he was hiding out, she got information where he was staying. So she dressed us all up, and we went to see him on a Saturday. And I can actually remember the place. It was a place in Old Trafford, and there's a park called Hullard Park. I don't even know that park. It's close to Seymour Park. Okay. Hullard Park. It's at the top of Shrewsbury Street. So we went there to see my dad, and I remember the joy, seeing him the next day. And by that time, the police were actually looking for him, because his friends had informed him that the police are looking for him, and they're saying that he was the one that had struck this woman, because I didn't even mention that during the time when the windows were getting broken. A woman, I don't know if she shouted something, but somebody struck her with they said iron bar, but I would say probably it was a stick, and the collarbone was broken. So they were looking for my dad to charge him with it, you see. So he got news from his friends, through the grapevine, They told him that the police are looking for him, and they're going to give him a beating too. That's what they actually told him, because we have our own network.
Yes.
So when he heard that, he was thinking, well, what should I do? So he decided to go to the Jamaican High Commissioner, and he was called Roy White. So he went to him, and he advised him to go and see his doctor so that he could get examined first before he was going to give himself up, And then he said he would go with him to a police station called Platt Lane Police Station. Yeah. That's in Fallowfield. Yeah. So he took him there, and and then he was interviewed. He told him, he told him what happened, and the police sergeant didn't really believe what happened, and said, "Well, I'm charging you for it, for this, which is grievous bodily harm. That's what, and he could get 3 years for that. So he's going to be charged now. So they gave him bail, and that was in the August 1969, and 3 months later he had to go to Manchester Crown Court. So he decided to take, the whole family, me and my brothers went to the court that day. But then but then my sister had to give evidence on behalf of my dad. So
she was actually there.
Because she was actually there, and
How old was your sister at the time?
My sister was 13 at the time.
Okay, so she was older.
She was going to Wally Range School. She was 13, and I heard how hard it was for her, because she said she was terrified, getting in the witness box at that age and being cross-examined.
Yeah.
And everything my dad said and everything my sister said, the jurors actually believed him at the end of the day, and
They found him not guilty.
they found him not guilty.
Wow.
So he walked out the court, a free man,
So yeah.
But yeah.
So did he went back to Russell Street, or did he after he came out?
Well, he went back to Russell Street, but he said at the end of the court trial, he says, I'm considering, seeing if I can find anywhere else, find somewhere else to live. And if I decide, he said, I'll have to, knock on a neighbour's door and ask him if I'm welcome, if I can live in the street, you know what I mean? And also at that time, in England, the racial problems was really, really bad, and we were considering leaving and going to live in Canada.
Wow. Was that
and
bad?
then my dad, he my dad and my mum, they started the paperwork, but they didn't go through with it. So we remained in Moss Side,
So
Manchester.
How did you come by getting the story into the book? Like, who contacted your dad?
Okay, yeah. But what happened then is, after the incident, there was a journalist that worked for the Sunday Times, and his name was Derek Humphrey.
Okay.
So he decided to come and to the house where we live and have a sit down with my dad. And he said that he would like to do a story on it. So the first story was to get it in the paper, in the Sunday Times. So my dad agreed. So what happened then was, I think it would have been probably around October or somewhere around there. That same year, he came to our house. This journalist that works for the Sunday Times, he came and he, was more or less interviewing a family, really, asking us a few things of what happened, when we were on the street. So we told him a few things that happened, with name calling and stuff. And anyhow, he put the story together in the Sunday Times, and that was published in November. The story, which is been shown now. So this is the.
So you've actually got the
story.
Okay, yeah.
So should I hold that up?
Yeah. So
that's
this is
a picture
the
of the
actual
sister.
story of your sister and your dad.
And my dad, yeah,
Okay.
after the court.
After the court.
Yeah, after the court.
Wow,
so that's the story.
So it says,
I laminated it.
You got to.
I got to laminate.
So it says race fight that needed never
happened.
happened. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It says
because it didn't really start off racial, really, the incident, but then it turned racial,
So it says Hubert Thomas, 36-year-old Jamaican, has unwittingly committed every mistake in the racist book of hate. Yeah. He has a white wife.
Yes.
He bought a house in the white section of a street, and he has 2 jobs because he wants to improve his living standards for his life. And it's a bit blurry, so that's why I really like it. Yeah, because it's been so long in it. Has suffered. The Thomas family was in the center of a major race riot this summer in Manchester, Moss Side. It received a little attention, but it is significant in 2 ways. Its causes can be traced with universal precision, and it shows how and when sympathetic action could have defended the imminent. It's a bit explosive. So but it's there anyway. But
sure. But what after that, what I do, I must mention, going back to the time when my dad had to go to court. I think what saved him, Blacks, was that the woman that got hit with the stick, she said in court that it was my dad that actually struck her, and she knew it wasn't, but they wanted somebody to pay for it. Now, actually, there was another white woman that lived on the street that witnessed, the incident,
and she said it
wasn't,
wow.
and that actually saved it. So there was only one person that said that he had struck, and it was a woman that got struck
Exactly.
herself. All the other, you know,
on the street said it wasn't him. Because it wasn't him.
It was just exactly.
Yeah. So
they said it wasn't him.
So it even got a section there where it names all it. So it says conflict 1.
Conflict 1.
Yeah. So it says at 4 p.m. on Thursday, August 7th, the Thomas boy had a quarrel with their playmates.
Playmates, that's right.
And blows to her exchange. Naturally, all the children ran home and proclaimed, it wasn't me.
That's right.
But a woman knocked at the Thomas door and said, 2 of your boys have belted my son. It's not fair.
That's right.
Mr. Thomas said, no, Mrs. Thomas says she was sorry and closed the door. But soon she heard it was not her son. It was not her son's fault, and started rip the street to pull over her point of view. It's a bit like I said. You can see it, it's just a bit blurry.
So smart. The writing
the writing is very small. So it's not that I can't read. It's just that it's been so long.
We have to go. Well, I had to go to Manchester Library.
And you will find
to get that. To get a copy. And also, I'll also must mention that after the incident on that night, which was August the 8th, it was the following day, August the 9th, was a Saturday. There was an article in the Manchester Evening News saying that 200 colours ran riot. Imagine that. 200, You mentioned. Small article. Just mentioned 200 colours rioted in Moss Side last night in Russell Street.
Wow.
Police are looking for a man that was wielding an iron bar. Wow. That's what it says. A very short article.
So this one says conflict 2.
Yeah, conflict 2.
Mind your own business. Get down your own end
of the street.
She was told by 3 women.
Yes.
Wow.
And then they pinned her against the wall and slapped her.
Wow.
So she
Miss Thomas shouted back, and a fight started between her and the 3 women. Miss Thomas shouted, one of her children, get your father.
That was more her sister.
So it was the same exact story. This was actually been documented.
It's documented
in the Sunday Times. So, and this one says conflict free. So if anyone wants to go and look up the stories, then the Sunday Times, the 16th of November, 1969.
That's
so
right.
You could get a full read.
The 16th of November. Which I've done many times. I've been down to the
16th of November. The Sunday Times. 1969. The year was. Conflict free. When Mr. Thomas got home from work at 7 p.m. next day, August 8th, he learned that his boys had a row with Miss Hickey. Mr. Hickey.
Okay.
Whom he had fought earlier in the year.
That's right. I told you that. And he was an Irish fella. And you know what? I must mention that we were friends, with his son and his daughters, before the incident, and we ended up being friends with them. Even Mr. Hickey, we ended up going to his house because I was friends with his son called Stephen. So I used to go to the house, and we got along with them. And they were actually Irish, by the way.
So
they were they were an Irish family, and they were a good family. I think Mr. Hickey, he just got caught up in it. And was like a scapegoat, actually.
So the woman kind of presses his button.
Because even though you pushed my brother, as I said, I knew the family and they were a good family, but it was the other family. It was some of the other people that were more hostile and very cold.
But this one was saying that your dad said he didn't even want it to fight.
Sorry?
Your dad said he did not want it to fight.
No, he just wanted to.
He just wanted
to speak to them.
But
he had his back turned, and he jumped on his man.
On him. So that was conflict free.
That was conflict free.
And there's the next one, conflict 4. It came at 10 p.m. just 3 hours after the fight with Mr. Hickey. That hot August night. And the incident was brief, violent, and sinister. Wow. News that Mr. Thomas had been beaten up had reached West Indians into Cave Bar
At the cafe.
Okay, that's the cafe, yeah?
Yeah, the cafe.
A mile away.
Yeah.
Among them were members of the
Universal.
No. It's what Heliform West Indian United Association.
Yeah, that's right.
Soon there was a knock at Mr. Thomas' door, and he found two well-dressed colored men who said they were from the Race Relation Board. Okay, so in them times, basically you had organization. Who was prepared to defend black
people. That's right.
Around, and if they heard of an incident, they would turn up.
Wow. That's right. Yeah.
So there was a lot more unity.
But there was but there was a lot going on, because that same year, 1969, it wasn't just people that lived in Manchester Moss Side. That were. I mean, there was police raids on shebeens, house parties, raided, and the police would go and take the drinks from them. And also there was an incident that's mentioned actually in the same chapter of the book with our family, with a man that was walking down, he parked his car on Green Street, and the police approached him, and I don't know, maybe they were questioning him to see if the car belonged to him, and he wanted to get out the car, and the police actually punched him and kicked him and took him to the police station.
Wow.
But I'm not sure what become of that. Really.
That's because he was black.
Yeah, because he was black.
So you've got a couple of notes there, Tony.
I've got a couple of notes here that I'd like to look through. Yeah. So talking about like the organisations that existed at that time. Yeah. So what I'd like to really say is that the experience that we got with this racial confrontation thing, you'd have to really link it with the actual time of what was going on in Britain at the time. Because remember, I mean, there was a few Black Power movements, and
so that one
of them was called the Universal Coloured People's Association.
Okay. That
was formed in 1967 to 1970. It was formed in Notting Hill, Ladbroke Grove.
Wow.
By a brother from Nigeria called Obi Egbuna.
Okay.
And then there was another brother, he's Asian, but he's born in Guyana.
Okay.
Called Roy Saw.
Okay.
Along with other members. Well, another member was Tony Soares.
Tony Soares, yeah.
But the main, the two, the person that formed, this Black Power movement was Obi Egbuna and Roy Saw. And then later on, what happened then is that these brothers, Obi Egbuna and Roy Saw, they often used to go to Hyde Park, and they would at Speaker's Corner and speak on,
black
issues, that were affecting black people and what they must do to defend themselves and so on and that. And I must say that this came about, right? This organisation, Universal Coloured People's Association, came about as a result of a Black Panther member called Stokely Carmichael that came to Britain in 1967. He came to Britain.
Is that from America?
He came from America, and he was more or less advising black people what they must do, to defend themselves. He said, fight back, if you're going to be attacked, fight back.
Okay.
So he came, and that's when these members, these people that formed these groups, this Black Power organization, and that, and also the same brother, Obi Egbuna, he left, the Universal Coloured People's Association and formed the Black Panther, the British Black Panther movement a year later, 1968, and that organization existed from 1968 to about 1972.
Wow. So
self-defense.
Self-defense. Obviously,
Black Power.
So he was. So you got there.
These and these are the names that I made a note of that were also prominent, members.
Yeah.
Althea Jones. She actually ran the the UCPA, which is the Universal Coloured People's Association, and she was a prominent Black Panther.
Yeah, a lady.
Lady, very powerful. She was from Trinidad.
Yeah, Althea Jones, that is.
Yeah. Wow. Althea Jones, and there was others as well. And
who's that? Ran Bath.
Okay. Well, the Universal Coloured People's Association that was formed in London, they had a branch in Manchester.
Okay.
And the brother that was running that was a brother called Ron Phillips. And he was, so that, so he was actually around during the time when we had this incident going on, and I often wonder how comes he didn't, how comes he wasn't drawn into it, some way or other. I don't know what happened, but yeah, and there was other members of the British Black Panthers as well, and you may have heard some of the names actually. Darkest How.
Okay.
The viewers, as I mentioned,
they will know the older ones.
Darkest How, Linton Kwesi Johnson, Olive Morris. She was a black woman from Jamaica, came to Brixton, and she helped people to get accommodation, and she organised, and she actually was a squatter.
So you mentioned the accommodation now, and this is what a lot of people don't understand, because even for our people back home, they think when not we, because obviously I wasn't here at the time, but at that time when people came to the UK, for example, people like your dad and them, they didn't know how hard it was for those people to get accommodation, to get a house to live in.
That's right.
You know what I mean? They didn't know. So could you tell us, because like I said, you didn't really go through that because you bought a house at an early age, so which was good.
Yeah.
But for other people, what could you see, the struggle, with what people go through just to get a house, because loads of black people wasn't welcome.
No, there wasn't welcome. So that's why even this sister called, what's her name, Olive Morris, she was actually getting very involved in that, in helping people to get accommodation. And if they couldn't get accommodation, what she would do is that she would, even herself, she ended up squatting down in Brixton, in a house, and other people would do that, and then they would actually give them,
the house.
Yeah, the premises.
So when it says squatting, they actually enters premises. And stay there.
Yeah.
Willing, not moving.
If the premises was empty.
Yeah.
They would break it and actually
enter in there.
Yeah, and they wouldn't trouble them. They would leave them, for a while. So
they would rather have an empty house rather than rent it to a black person.
To a black person. Yeah. All that was going on. It was a lot of discrimination going on in so many different areas. With work and that's employment and housing and so. But then I'd like to mention one of the authors of the book, because I mentioned Derek Humphreys, and he was the one that did the story, for us, for the Sunday Times. But then Gus John, he was an author of the book as well.
Yes.
And he was down in Birmingham at the time working for Ruddy Mead. It was called, Ruddy Mead, and I think it was called Ruddy Mead Trust. He was working for them, and his job was actually to go in all the black communities, in particular Handsworth, and observe what was going on. What they were facing with police brutality as a secret kind of undercover. And then he would report back to Ruddy Mead and inform them as to what was going on.
But did you say was your dad a part of that organisation as well, or was he?
Oh no, because he didn't belong to any organisation, no Black Power organisation, no. But our paths crossed in there really, the cross. Because on that night, although in the Sunday Times, the Derek Humphreys that written a story, he was investigating himself, because he was a journalist, so he was going around Moss Side talking to a lot of black people in the cafes, trying to find out who was responsible for this incident. So years later, I found out that I actually discovered some of them that were there that night. I met them later on. I won't mention their names.
Of course.
I met them, but a lot of them are dead now. Actually, they passed on now. And
how did you?
They came from, that night they came from a cafe called the Bow Street Cafe. And I'll mention this for the viewers because they know the lady that ran it, and her name was Miss Lou.
And her. So how
Her
did
brother
you...
is Kipper Lynch, you know.
Okay,
They used to
Father
run,
Lynch, yeah.
and they used to run the Bow Street Cafe, you know, Father Lynch.
Yeah,
So
Father
they
Lynch.
ran the Bow Street Cafe, and that's where all the militants used to go and reason and hang out.
Okay.
So so we just called them the Bow Street Posse.
Yeah.
They were the ones that came down that night.
Yeah. But how did you feel as a young one to see your father get help, even though it wasn't in a very positive way? But obviously at the time, that's all they could do, because if they didn't stand up for your dad, maybe advantages of taking
would have taken,
you know, what I mean, further on in
Well, I felt good about the whole thing, and I think that's really, as the years gone by, that really developed a consciousness in me to realize, you know, so I re-identify as being black or African descent, or African, matter of fact. I'll even go as far as to say that. You know. So definitely, and I've never forgot that, you know.
No,
but it wasn't until later on, when I became older, I actually did some research on what was going on in England at the time, and that's why I was able to put this information together and show you how bad it was, because all the things that I mentioned, there's two of the things that happened in 1969, and that was, there was a brother that was a Nigerian, he was living in Leeds, and he was homeless, and he had mental health issues, and he used to sleep in doorways in Leeds town centre. And the police knew that he was sleeping in doorways and they used to deliberately go and look for him, and they would actually piss on him, you know, pee on him, and call him, you know, names like Wog and that. And until one night they actually went looking for him, and he, you know, become scared because it was happening, and he actually ran away from them, you know, blacks, and ran down the street to a river. And to this day, it's not known whether he jumped in the river, or he slipped in the river, or he was pushed in the river. And those police officers were responsible, really, for him, for that. For that happening. And they went to court for it. And
so that's one of the organizations took the police to court?
Oh, no. That was actually, because the police actually chased him, then they were prosecuted, you know, the police. So it wasn't really an organization. Well, then again, it might have been. I'm not quite sure.
Someone have to bring it to
the story,
their attention for them police
for
to
them
be...
exactly. I'm not quite sure who it was, you know. But it was brought to their attention that the police were doing that on a regular.
They were seeking justice for him, basically.
Yeah, and they got charged with manslaughter, you know. But they didn't get found. They weren't found guilty of manslaughter. They were found guilty of GBH. Is that grievous
bodily harm
as well?
So that was 3 years at that time.
Yeah, and that was two police officers. One of them got 3 years, and the other one got 27 months. First time as well. Any police officer has been charged.
So that was, even though he lost his life, that was a kind of stepping up to see that someone was being held responsible for their actions. For their actions. And
along with that, because we're talking about 1969, you know, the same year that my family suffered this. Also in Leeds, there was, and that was the month before. The month before our experience, you know, with what happened to us. Some white guy in Leeds, I think they were very racist towards, I think it was mostly Asians in Leeds. There might have been, there might have been, you know, racial, you know, towards black people as well, but it's mostly, I think, Asians at the time, and it ended up in, you know, like a fight or whatever, and a white guy actually got stabbed and was killed, and then a lot of white young men went out, you know, looking for, I guess, to retaliate against, I think it was Asians. No, it wasn't black people, you know, it was, well, Asians, it was what the black people say. So they went looking for them, and the boy's father pleaded with them, you know, actually not to cause no more trouble, enough's enough, my son's been killed and whatever, and nothing, you know, all quieting down. So all these things that was going on, and then also, 1969, you know, because I mentioned about, you know, the British Black Panthers that formed here. The American Black Panthers would get in hell over in America the same year, 1969. so many police killings of Black Panther members. So I'm just linking it together.
Yeah.
So, you know, as to show you what was going on in America, you know?
It was right across the street.
Comes crossed to Britain, you know, at the same time.
Wow.
You know, lots of things was going on all over America, you know.
So in Moside, where you been,
Yeah.